Hi, everybody. For those of you who are longtime subscribers, thank you for checking out my first long form video in a very long time. This is a very different video, and it's not one that I find any kind of joy in filming. For those of you who are new to this channel, welcome aboard. My name is Mike. I am a certified personal trainer of 8 years, corrective exercise specialist, and nutrition coach as well. But this is, as I just alluded to, a different kind of video. This is not going to be an instructional video or something that might give any kind of motivation or different spin on teaching and exercise. Um, this is going to be about something I'm going through right now, and there are a few videos I have discovered regarding this topic, but like anything else, each video I come across and anyone else can come across might or might not offer a new spin on things. And I'm hoping that this video does that for you, the viewer. I recently was diagnosed with what is called a pituitary adenoma. I was actually diagnosed a year ago. So, what is a pituitary adenoma? Well, a pituitary adenoma is a tumor that is usually found sitting pretty but in the pituitary stem of the brain, right at the pituitary gland. So, with its growth comes its tendency to exacerbate the production of one hormone and completely disrupt the production of another hormone because that's what the pituitary gland does. It produces and secretes hormones. So, prolactin for the ladies and growth hormone or testosterone for the men. And it can go either way. The tumor can exacerbate either the production of either hormone and completely disrupt the production of another hormone. And it could get big enough if not detected soon or addressed as quick enough that it can cause things such as headaches and blindness. Some of the other symptoms include, from a hormonal standpoint, loss of strength, fatigue, weight gain. And these things I have had happen to me under wraps for a good year or two. Again, I found out about it a year ago, more than a year ago, but I kept it quiet on here primarily because I was not posting any videos about this until my parents knew, and I kept this a secret from my parents for a year and a half, just about. Up until the end of September, I kept this a secret due to stuff I will talk about in a few minutes. Uh, that's why I was forced to finally tell them the truth. So let's discuss how this happened to me. I was going to a doctor who I will not name in 2022. There's a reason why I was going to him, but there's a problem. This doctor in particular has not seen his patients in years. He has PAs do his light work for him. And his PAs, all PAs are well meaning, but some of them won't think to be a detective because they don't have the experience. So, between two jobs, because I was working in the Board of Ed for New York City and I was training part time at night, and I was very tired and very stressed out. And I asked this particular PA, this is March of 2022, if when we did my blood work to please look at my testosterone because I was tired all the time and I was feeling weak. To which he agreed. Pardon me. I've got a phone call a week or so later from a nurse saying that the PA found that my testosterone was low. I wasn't given a range, I wasn't given a number, but I was told that they wanted me to go on testosterone replacement therapy. I was not yet 38 years old. I was not ready to go on TRT until I was older. There was no reason for me to go, so I said, "Screw it! I'll figure this out on my own." And by the way, years later, this year, I saw my TRT, my testosterone levels from 2022, and it was already at a staggeringly low 287. And if I'm not mistaken, the desired range for testosterone should be anywhere between 350 and 950 or 900. Um, but I was starting to focus more on one job, and I was taking a leave of absence from another job while getting paid, which meant I was going to sleep some more. I wasn't sleeping enough. I was eating better. I was feeling, and after a while, I felt stronger in the gym, and I thought, okay, crisis averted. Or so I thought. I leave the Department of Education months later, which means I no longer have insurance. And I went a whole year without insurance. And consequently, starting in the spring of 2023, things began to happen to me. I will not discuss what those things were, but they were very odd. And it had me worried almost instantly. By the time the end of 2023 arrived, by which point I had finally bit the bullet and bought myself insurance so I could get certain things looked at finally, I noticed that I was tired all the time. My fatigue had greatly increased. I was feeling infinitely weaker in the gym. At one point, I would go on to struggle with a 270-pound leg press, and that's actually documented online somewhere. I was having problems with memory loss, the likes of which I had not experienced since I had long haul COVID side effects. And I was very emotional. I was crying a lot. Fast forward to February of last year, 2024. I meet my brand new doctor. She's my doctor today. We did our annual checkup because she had just met me. We do the blood work, and upon looking at the blood work, she showed me a bunch of things, but the biggest thing was my testosterone was down to 269. And this doctor had said to me, "You're healthy, you're not fat, your cholesterol's kind of okay by low density, but that's genetic. But why is your testosterone so low? You're 39. Why don't we get to the bottom of this and let's see why this is happening? Do you want to see an endocrinologist first, or do you want to see a urologist first?" Now, before I continue, what's the moral of this story so far? The moral of this story, and maybe this is not something that was explained in other videos, is make sure you have yourself a doctor that is a detective. If you go to a doctor's office and only PAs see you, they may mean well, but they're not going to have the experience of the doctor they work for to play detective. They're just going to give you a fix. And I thank goodness I did not go for that fix because things would have been bad for me. I'll tell you that right now. And a lot sooner than it's become. So, back to the story. We're almost done. I wanted to go to a urologist first because I had something else I wanted to fix. So kill two birds with one stone. The urologist told me that he would like to put me on TRT, but why don't we check my blood work first to justify it on his end? I agreed. Oh, yeah, other moral of the story: everyone, women, men, get your blood work done because you never know what you might find. So I do my blood work for the urologist, and a few weeks later, I come back to get the results. I have to say this: my urologist, good urologist, he has interesting bedside manner. Ladies, you would love him for this one. He walked in the door, and his hello to me was, "Your testosterone's lower than it was in the previous blood work. Your prolactin levels are high. Your thyroid levels are a little high. You might want to go to get an MRI. You may have a tumor." That was his hello to me. My response: "Well, hello to you too, Doc." As I'm turning red in the face and getting anxiety, the likes of which I hadn't experienced in a very long time. And that's when he went on to explain to me what a pituitary adenoma is and what it does. Because by this point, I was starting to gain body fat inexplicably. I went on to get an MRI, and the week before I turned 40, by which point I was slowly climbing towards 200 pounds body weight, and not muscle, and not because I was eating garbage either. My primary looked at the results of my MRI and she looked distressed. "I don't like this," she said. And she went on to explain to me that I do, in fact, have a pituitary adenoma. It was 1.5 centimeters by 1.5 by 1.5. And if it got any bigger, it was going to contact the optic chiasm, the nerve that crosses the eyes, and that could blind me. She sent me the way of a neurosurgeon, pardon me. He wanted to operate on me right away. And one of the caveats of what I do for a living now is you don't get paid when you take time off. So I said, I cannot do that. Can we find another way? He sent me the way of his endocrinologist friend in Jersey City. So I went to Jersey City and he told me we could try this pill, and it was cabergoline. Cabergoline's meant to stop the production of prolactin and potentially shrink tumors, both adenomas, macroadenomas like I have, or microadenomas or prolactinomas, which is a prolactin tumor, more prevalent in women. So I agreed to do it. And he said to me, once we find that your prolactin levels are down, we can start you on testosterone replacement therapy. I start taking this pill. I do the blood work, and the prolactin levels are down. And I noticed I was finally, after a whole half a year of crying and being tired and forgetting things, I'm no longer forgetting things. I'm no longer crying every single day inexplicably. And my energy levels are starting to come back gradually. I began TRT, but it was the alcohol gel TRT, which I found did nothing for me. By October of 2024, we did a follow-up MRI for my neurosurgeon, and we found that the tumor had somewhat begun to shrink. It was 1.5 centimeters by 1.2 centimeters now by 1.5. And my neurosurgeon said, "All right, yeah, we don't have to operate on you." I said, "Heck yeah. Life goes on. My parents don't have to know. No one has to know a thing, and I can move on." My testosterone levels, unfortunately, were still going downward. We did that blood work with my primary, who convinced me to be a man and just start injecting TRT already, and she showed me how to do it right there on the spot. So in October of last year, a year ago, I had begun injecting TRT. As time went on, I would do blood tests. I was feeling stronger in the gym, the strongest I'd felt in a very long time. My energy levels had come back, and my testosterone would slowly increase. We even did a bone density scan that showed that I had osteopenia, which means my bones are in a weakened state. But my doctor surmised that I probably had osteoporosis months prior. My testosterone had gone back up to the low 400s, which meant it was in the range it needed to be in. Not where I wanted it to be, but it was getting there. And life was moving on, or so I thought. In April, a month or two after the bone density scan, and a good month or two after the blood work was done, I do another follow up MRI for my neurosurgeon that showed that the tumor had grown back. It was now 1.5 centimeters by 1.5 by 1.4 centimeters. Practically back to the exact size it was when it was discovered in May of 2024. So, my neurosurgeon wanted to operate. This was proof that it was not a prolactinoma, but I wasn't ready just yet. A month later, I did an independent paid study for someone, and it was an MRI. And the lady who was in charge of overseeing everything knew about my tumor and decided to do me a solid and had the MRI technician focus on my tumor, and they found that it had grown zero point 0.1 centimeter and it was now touching the optic chiasm. I'm panicking. I know I'm going to have to get operated on without even being told. That was May of this year. In July of this year, I had begun to experience headaches. And historically in the summer, I have sinus headaches. I've had some pretty bad sinus headaches going back to 25 years ago at the age of 16. So I'm assuming it's that. I take medication for it, but nothing goes away. Painkillers will take the pain away, but I'm noticing I'm still feeling pressure right around over here. So it's not sinuses. And I know something's going on. I'm monitoring it for a few weeks before I make the phone calls I know I need to make, because I need to know that I know it's happening, so that way I can describe it to my neurosurgeon. I go to him on September the 8th, more than a month ago. And he said that before he operates on me, let's justify it by ruling everything else out. So therefore, he wanted me to go to a neurologist. One problem: all neurologists are booked through December. So I got myself a PA to see 2 weeks later. And unfortunately, on the week of my visit to the PA, my headaches were kicked up several notches from a scale of 1 to 10. They were at 4, and now the pain was at 11. It was debilitating. Long story boring, when I saw the neurologist PA, and when I was in which I was in a fasted state because I was supposed to do blood work for my primary right after seeing her, she almost called 911 on me because I was crying in the office. I was crying in her room. The pain was that bearable, and I was scared. Okay? I was very scared. The next day, the headaches were so debilitating I could barely move. I took car service to the emergency room. I was supposed to do an MRI. I actually had an MRI scheduled for the following week. But we did a CAT scan right there and then, and they found that the tumor had in fact grown another zero point 0.2 centimeters. So, quick recap. When I started, when I had my first follow up MRI in October of last year, the tumor was shrinking. And now, as time was going on, it was growing back, and it was growing back pretty fast. And it was in October that I began TRT. So I'm wondering now, we don't do the MRI there because they did not want to charge me for an overnight stay. The MRI machine would not be available until the next day. I call up the radiology building that I was going to for my MRI, and I asked them to please push me up to that day because I was in the emergency room the previous night. They did me a solid. I was able to get in, and I saw images of the tumor. It looked like a speed bag for boxing. And the MRI technician said it doesn't look like it's doing anything, but that's just an MRI technician. He has multiple meds for migraines. Some people were telling me it might be migraines. And that sounded like it was nice to hear, but unfortunately that was not the case. Because within a few days I found out that the tumor had in fact begun to apply pressure on my optic chiasm, and that's why I was having headaches. Since that time, I have been on a steady diet of anti inflammatories and migraine meds to keep me functioning. Um, I have officially scheduled my surgery as of last week because it's to the point now that if this tumor gets any bigger, I can possibly go blind or at the very least get double vision. The other thing to note is that in the MRI report, the adenoma was described as no longer being a pituitary adenoma, but as something a little bit more rare called a craniopharyngioma. And my primary care doctor, upon looking at my MRI results, just hours after the neurologist office called me to tell me the results themselves, she was wondering if the TRT had exacerbated the growth of the tumor. Most people will say that it's not likely. My endocrinologist said it wasn't likely. My ophthalmologist, who's in on this also because of the peripheral vision exams I've been participating in since last May, he said that there's no proof about this, proof that that's possible, and my neurosurgeon said the same thing. My primary doctor, though, is convinced that's the TRT. The joke she made was the TRT made you buff, it also made your tumor buff. It's funny until it's not because because at this time my head was still in extraordinary pain. So I will be going under the knife on Thursday, February 13th. I do not know yet what time I have to be there. But for anybody wondering, for anyone who is about to go through this surgery, they usually do this in a very non invasive manner through the nose, transfenodal surgery. Between It's a joint surgery between an ENT and a neurosurgeon. And I already met with the neurosurgeon months ago, so that was not the neurosurgeon, the ENT months ago, so that part's already been handled. Funny thing is, I have a deviated septum. The ENT has to fix my deviated septum before they do what they have to do. So I'll be getting, as someone joked, a complimentary nose job. So after fixing my deviated septum, he'll be sending tools and a camera up my nose, and then he will drill a hole in my sella. SELLA, that's the bone that's protecting the pituitary gland. Using a diamond drill a little hole in my skull, and then he will jump out. The neurosurgeon will jump in and remove the tumor through my nose using multiple tools, because he and I spoke last week about how he does his process, what his process is. And once that's done, he will reseal the sella using a special glue and possibly some belly fat from me. And he will jump out. The ENT will jump back in and slowly pull everything out of my nose. This should probably take anywhere between 2 to 5 hours. I have a 1.8 centimeter tumor. It's probably still growing. I will definitely be there overnight to make sure for them to check my urine, the gravity of my urine, the sodium levels of my urine, to make sure that I'm suddenly not a diabetic. They want to make sure that I can hear, I can see, they didn't accidentally touch a nerve somewhere, and that I know my name. I know where I am, I know who I am, I know who they are. I'll probably hang out in the hospital for monitoring for the next 2 or 3 days max. After that, I will go home for the real recovery. I didn't want this to be too long of a video, so I'm going to stop here. If anyone has any questions about anything, please leave a comment or feel free to message me privately. I will make another video in the next day or two discussing what recovery will be like for me and how long recovery will last and what I'm going to have to do during recovery for me. All right, so thank you for watching. If you are a first-time viewer of my channel and you like what you're seeing here, if you find what I'm telling you helpful, because remember this, you are not alone. Feel free to like this video, subscribe, pass around to your friends. For those of you who are not new to my channel, like this video anyway and send it to all your friends anyway. And I'll be back in a few days. Thank you for watching this. I hope you found this helpful.